my presentation on Total War. I'm doing the pacification of Libya, also known as the Second Italian Senussi War. So, as an Italian possession, the Italians got control over Libya from the Ottomans in the Italian-Turkish War in 1912. The war only lasted a year, from 1911 until 1912, and Italy had marginal control over Libya at the time. I say marginal because after the Treaty of Lausanne, or the Treaty of Ouchy, also known as the Treaty of Auchi if you're American, ceded the territories of Tripolitania and Cyrenaica from the Ottomans to control of Italy. However, there were still resistance groups in the area, one of the main ones being the Senussi Order, especially in eastern Libya, and they were a big challenge for the Italians in terms of consolidating the order in Libya. And after the Italian-Turkish War, during the First World War, the Ottomans actually started supplying these rebels who had been fighting against them when the Ottomans controlled Libya. But now that the Italians own Libya, that's when the Ottomans started supplying them. And on April 17th, the Italians were forced to sign an armistice because they were unable to deal with the Libyan rebels. That treaty was known as the Treaty of Acroma, and it could have meant independence. After the treaty was signed, in the Republic of Tripolitania was founded by the rebels who were fighting there in 1920. It was still in control of Italy at the time, quote unquote. The rebels really had control of Libya, but it was Italian as far as the political maps were concerned. But Italy was forced to recognize ruler Said Mohammed Idris as the emir of Cyrenaica, which is the eastern part of Libya. And the Republic of Tripolitania even offered to him the emir of Tripolitania as well. However, he's unable to accept it because as he was going to accept it, the Italians have a new foreign policy under Benito Mussolini of reconquering Libya. So, this is a map of Libya. These are just, to give you an idea of some important places. Up here is Tripolitania. This is where the Republic was set up. This is Cyrenaica. This is where the other Republic was set up. And this is Fezzan. Those are just the three main regions of Libya, just to give you an idea. These are the major cities. Benghazi being one of the most important. Tripoli being also a very big important one. Sirte is going to be important. And Al-Jalf, Kufra, is going to be another one you're going to remember. That was one of the last strongholds. And then up here, where it says Al-Madj on El Abyar, this little area right here is going to be Jebel Akhtar. That is Green Mountain, and it is a very important fighting spot. And then I have right here just a map of Libya. And in the red dots, those are where major concentration camps were set up. And so the invasion. They began the invasion in the Sirte Desert, right where Sirte was. They occupy a strip of about 150,000 miles, or kilometers rather, and they cut off physically Tripolitania from Cyrenaica, which was an important part of the strategy. Just about right there is where they landed. As you can see, Cyrenaica is right here, Tripolitania is right here, and it's just right in the middle, divide and conquer kind of strat. The invasion proceeds west into Tripolitania, and by the end of 1924, they have control over most of the western region. However, right there on the dot is a place known as Jebel Akhdar, which is what I said earlier. And there is a local leader elected by the Senussi Order fighters there named Omar Mukhtar, Sheikh Omar Mukhtar, and he is leading the resistance in that area. But by 1930, Italy had control over all of northern and western Libya. Fezzan and Tripolitania had fallen. The last stronghold in Fezzan falling in 1930, the very most southern point of the region. And then the last Senussi holdout fell out on February 20th, 1931, right here at Kufra. I misspelled it there. But the Italian plan was they wanted, the Germans called it Lebensraum. They wanted living space for their new people. Libya was important because Benito Mussolini's idea of a new Rome being expanded fit really well into the expansion on the northern coast, which the Romans had owned. Um, he even called it the fourth coast of Italy. And as far as historical accuracy and all that, I'm not gonna you know Mussolini and his ambitions were always grandeur, but they wanted to settle Libya as a settler colony. Um, and so to achieve this, you have to relocate the native Bedouin and Cyrenaicans in the area. Um, and after the fall of Fezzan, the Italian focus uh, was on complete subjugation. Um, After Fezzan fell in 1930, they tried negotiating with Omar Mukhtar in Jabal Akhdar, and negotiations fell through. And the new Italian plan was, we are going to subjugate them completely. And so the Italians started aerial gas attacks with poisonous gas on sometimes on civilian populations, sometimes on troops fleeing. A couple at Kufra, the last stronghold, they used gas attack on the fleeing uh, Senussi soldiers. And all this culminated into death marches to about 15 different concentration camps, and those red dots I showed you on the map. And these were some of the leaders that took place. So these are important names. So right here is Sheikh Omar Mukhtar. He was the leader of the Senussi forces after Fezzan fell in 1930. He was elected by the rest of the Senussi, the remaining Senussi rebels, that is. But he wasn't just a military leader. He was a sheikh. He was a very important figure in the Senussi order. And Sufi, I believe it's Sufi, Muslim ideology in general. But the Italians executed him on the 16th of September, 1931. This was the man he was the big leader, I suppose, in terms of the whole invasion. Pietro Bagdaglio. Um, he gained notoriety during the Italian-Turkish War. And he was put in charge of Tripolitania and Cyrenaica as the governor after the conquest. And he is quoted as saying to his contemporary, who we'll look on the next slide, as for overall strategy, it is necessary to create a significant and clear separation between the controlled population and the rebel formations. He was talking about concentration camps. That was the clear separation, even though the separation was not very clear, and tragically, everyone was forced into concentration camps. This was the other man. His name was Rodolfo Graziani. He was the one that Pietro was talking to with the quote. He was the leader of the forces in Fezzan. I should say Western Offensive in Fezzan. But he was the leader of that offensive, and he gained the nickname the Butcher of Fezzan for his brutal tactics of aerial gas, executing civilians, reprisal killings, you name it. But he was put in charge of suppressing the remaining Senussi in Cyrenaica after he conquered Fezzan, and he, for his actions, was awarded the deputy governorship of Cyrenaica. Yes, and then there are the concentration camps. I put concentration camps, but I will talk about other war crimes as well. And 15 were established in and around Benghazi and along the northern coast, up to Sirte. They were between Benghazi and Sirte. There were 15 in and along that area. The Italians marched over 100,000 people to these camps, whether they were Bedouin, Cyrenaican, or Senussi. Sometimes all three. That was, some people were Bedouin, some people were Cyrenaican, some people were Senussi. All three. It was more of a cultural thing. When you look at the efficiency of concentration camps and that kind of thing, it's not very selective on who the Italians wanted in them. It was however you could get them in there. You could just pack them in like sardines. It was horrible. I can't even talk about how absolutely horrible it was. There were at least 40,000 deaths. Anybody who couldn't make it to the camps on foot were shot on the spot. Some of them were reported to have 20,000 people in an area of 1 square kilometer. And I tried measuring it out. It was very difficult to imagine 20,000 people in 1 kilometer. Um, it was horrible. I mean, absolutely horrible. And some of the camps were reported as only having one doctor per 30,000 people, um, among other neglections of water, food, basic clothing, shelter. 20,000 people in 1 square kilometer is not, very sanitary or in a very efficient way of keeping people, you know, well fed. And the camps were never supposed to, be for comfort or anything like that. And there are my sources right there. And that is the end.